We look at how the Dallas Cowboys can potentially dethrone the San Francisco 49ers atop the NFC. Are they the team that is the biggest threat to them? All that and more come up next year on Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher. I'm the host of Locked On Ravens and one of the many NFL experts here on our network, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On NFL a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms. So in video form, if you like to watch over there, you can hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well to the channel. If you're in audio form, you like to listen over there, be sure to follow along and subscribe for 5 days a week of NFL content. Today's episode of Locked On NFL is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code Locked On NFL for $20 off first purchase. Terms apply. On today's show, we're going to be talking about how the Dallas Cowboys can dethrone the San Francisco 49ers. Are they the biggest threat in the NFC to San Francisco? We'll talk about that with Mosher of Locked On Cowboys. Then in the second part of the show, Jamal Adams, signed with the Tennessee Titans. So Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans will be taking us through that. And finally, David Harrison of Locked On Commanders will join us to be talking about expectations for Washington. Plus, David was the host over at Locked On Bucks, one of them for a little while. So he's going to help us remember Monte Kiffin, the legendary defensive coordinator. Without any further ado, though, let's first get into our conversation with Mosher of Locked On Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are looking to avenge their disappointing end of the 2023 season. Here to talk about that with me is Mosher, the host of Locked On Cowboys, one of them over there. And Marcus, I think for Dallas, everybody just has such a sour taste in their mouth after how that playoff game went and all of the excitement leading into that. They obviously were able to take the NFC East crown back from Philadelphia late, but it all came crashing down. Now they have an opportunity to get some revenge. And I think to start, everybody's looking in the NFC as to how can they dethrone San Francisco. They are the top dogs in the conference. Obviously, not a lot of people think Dallas is too far off from that. But how do you think they go about dethroning San Francisco and getting to the top of the conference?
Well, it starts on defense. And I think the Cowboys did not make a lot of changes this offseason, right? And no extensions, hardly any movement in free agency at all. But one of the big moves that they did make is hiring Mike Zimmer to be the defensive coordinator after Dan Quinn left. Listen, Dan Quinn is an unbelievable defensive mind. You look at where the Cowboys have ranked in turnovers over the last 3 years. They were number one. You look at the number of interceptions that they've gotten, with DeRon Bland and Diggs. It's all incredible. However, his defenses have not matched up well against the Kyle Shanahan's. Let's just call it the Shanahan tree. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel. But you look at Mike Zimmer's track record in his history, he's kind of the best defensive coordinator against those type of coaches. So if this Cowboys defense can be a little bit more sound, they can stop the run better. I do think they can compete with San Francisco because they have such an explosive offense on the other side of the ball.
And with that, the Cowboys defense in general, where do you think their strengths and weaknesses lie? Even though they didn't do a ton to upgrade anything, where do you think they can improve? And then where do you think they're going to excel this season?
Well, to me, it's the defensive tackle spot. I mean, it's still a major, major issue. They have Osa Odighizuwa, who is in the final year of his contract. They drafted Mazi Smith in round 1 last year. Now, Mazi Smith did not play particularly well. They lost Jonathan Hankins. They need the defensive tackle group to be better. And if they're going to be better against the run, they have to have those guys be more stout. They're counting and they're banking on Mike Zimmer just coaching those guys up. But the strength of this defense has always been the pass rush. You have Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, maybe the best edge duo in the league. And then the cornerback room with Trayvon Diggs, DeRon Bland, and Jordan Lewis. There's probably not a better cornerback trio in the league, certainly when you look at their takeaway ability. So if they can rush the passer, they can get turnovers and takeaways in the back end. I think they still should be a pretty good defense, even in with a new coaching staff.
Yeah, and I think the conference in general this year, Marcus, everybody kind of views the NFC as, this top-heavy conference with 3 or 4 good teams, and the rest are kind of like, man, I expect that to actually improve this season. There'll be more competitiveness there. But do you think Dallas is the top threat to San Francisco? Would you give Philadelphia that title? Would you give another team that title? Or do you think it is Dallas with the likely shot to knock them off if there was one?
There are reasons to pick Dallas here, right? Because I think you can make an argument they have the best quarterback in the conference, right? I mean, you look at what Dak Prescott has done over the last couple of years. You look at his numbers. He's probably the most reliable quarterback week in and week out. And if you look at Dak plus the playmakers they have on defense, you could make an argument that Dallas is the biggest threat to San Fran. But I'm going to go Detroit. Just when you look at that Detroit offensive line and what they can do with those guys up front, plus all of their playmakers on offense, they've upgraded the defense. They added Terrion Arnold this offseason. I think the Lions probably are the safest bet to upset San Fran. But I got to be honest with you, Kevin. I think San Fran is a tier above everybody else in the conference, even with several of these other teams improving this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough ask for anybody to knock them off. Can happen, but San Francisco definitely going to be the favorite heading into this season. Now, you mentioned Dallas's inactivity during this offseason for the most part. I know it shocked everybody of how inactive they were, but for you, Marcus, just how shocked were you that they decided to not really do a ton and make big splashy moves, decided to really not do anything until, a couple months, a month into the offseason? It took a while.
They only signed 2 street free agents. They signed Ezekiel Elliott back, which hooray. And then they signed Eric Kendricks to a vet minimum deal. So those are the only moves that they really made this offseason. They lost Dorrance Armstrong, Tyler Biadasz, Dante Fowler, Stephon Gilmore, still a free agent. So they lost a lot of talent. But to answer your question, I'm not surprised at all. I think Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones are really looking at this season. I know they said all in, and what I think that really meant is after this year, we're going to be all in this year. And then after this year, we're going to leave all of our options open, which means maybe moving on from Dak, maybe moving on from Mike McCarthy, maybe completely tearing this thing down, or maybe going all in again in 2025, if they can be a little bit better, improve a little bit more this year. So they've wanted for a long time to give themselves options and outs in case things go wrong. And I think that's what this offseason was for. Don't tie up any future money into seasons 2025, 2026, and let's see how things play out.
All right, your point actually makes a lot of sense because if you don't know where you're going, the worst thing you do is hamstring yourself with multiple big contracts and then a year later be like, oh, we don't really want this anymore. And then you have all this guaranteed money, push that money down the line. So it makes sense. But Dallas going with what they have now, we'll see how that pans out. But I know for a lot of teams, Marcus, training camp is an opportunity for a lot of underrated players to step up, make a name for themselves, earn roster spots. Offensively, defensively, even special teams, if you want to go there, who are some players that NFL fans should know about on this Dallas roster that aren't really being talked about?
Well, let's look at the running back position because I think a lot of people assume that Ezekiel Elliott is going to be back as the workhorse guy. I don't see that. I think Zeke is at the point of his career where he is a short yardage, goal line running back that can help him pass pro, and that's probably his role. So which running back is going to become the quote-unquote feature back? I'm looking at Rico Dowdle, who the Cowboys did re-sign this offseason, who played pretty well last year in limited snaps. I think the Cowboys are going to give him plenty of opportunities in training camp to go out and win this job. And if he can't, that's when I expect him to go out and make a move, maybe trade for a Khalil Herbert. Maybe they'll go look at somebody like Justice Hill in Baltimore, right? I think that's when the Cowboys would be opening their minds to potentially adding another guy. And then on defense, I'm going to go with Sam Williams, their third pass rusher, third-year guy out of Ole Miss. The Cowboys are really relying on him to become that third pass rusher with Dorrance Armstrong gone, with Dante Fowler gone. He is an incredible athlete. He ran in the 4.5s at 260 pounds. The Cowboys are really banking on him having a big year 3. We'll see how that performs or how that plays out in camp.
Marcus is great. And for more on Marcus, check him out over at the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming up in the second part of the show, Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans joins us to talk about the newest member of Tennessee, Jamal Adams. Stay tuned. Got a lot to get to here on the show. First, the show is brought to you by Gametime. And for me, MLB, going to games, it is an awesome, awesome thing. And I have a lot of childhood memories. And of course, I always love to go to a couple games a year and make new memories as well during the summer. And Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball. It makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from receipt, and the lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. On the Gametime app, obviously the All-Star break is here for the Orioles. They just finished up a 3-game set with the Yankees, a wild finish in that last game, but Gametime has it covered for MLB tickets, specifically Orioles, and of course the Ravens starting up soon. You can go on Gametime for those tickets as well. And on the Gametime app, they have a bunch of great features. My favorite being last-minute deals. You can save 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. Plus, the app is super easy to use, easy to navigate, and some other features include flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing, seat views, lowest price guarantee, Gametime ticket coverage, and so much more. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Down the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off first purchase. So on the spot again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime for the last-minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. We're back for our second segment of Locked On NFL. Kevin Mosher still talking with you here on this Monday. Appreciate everybody for being here today. And, of course, making Locked On NFL your first listen today. Be sure to make your second listen Locked On Sports today with Peter Bukowski, who takes you all across the sports world here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, Jamal Adams signs with the Tennessee Titans. Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans will be joining us now to talk about what it means for the Titans if it changes their defense at all. So let's talk with Tyler now. The Tennessee Titans signed Jamal Adams late last week, and here to talk about that with me is Tyler Rowland, the host of Locked On Titans. And Tyler, I know that we're not talking about prime Jamal Adams here, not New York Jets Jamal Adams or anything like that, but still a player with an intriguing skill set, albeit a pretty lengthy injury history and some drop-off in play over recent years. This was a deal that didn't cost the Titans a lot of money, so low risk, high reward signing. But how did you like the move, and did it fill any need that Tennessee had?
Well, Kevin, here's what I'll tell you first. I don't actually think it's a low-risk, high-reward signing. I would say that it's a low-risk, low-reward signing is what I would say, because even if Jamal Adams plays well for the Titans, and let's say he stays healthy, the guy's only played 22 games in the last 3 seasons, but let's assume that things go, he plays well, he's healthy. I still think that he is simply a depth role player for the Titans. I have a feeling that he's going to be a sub-package role player where it's passing situations, and you can have a guy like Jamal Adams play at the linebacker position rather than actually in the secondary as a safety. I think his limitations in coverage, he missed 25% of his tackle attempts last year as well, so he's touted for his physicality, but even when healthy, he hasn't been a good player. You know what I mean? But like you asked, the Titans did have a need in the secondary. They have Amani Hooker as one of their certified starting safeties. And I think Hooker is one of the more underrated players in the NFL at the safety position. I wouldn't say he's a top tier, top 10 safety or anything like that, but he's definitely a quality starter in the NFL. Outside of him, they didn't really have another starting level safety. They have fourth-year player Elijah Molden, who was a cornerback in college, who they converted to safety over the last couple of years. He's had some good moments. He's had some injuries. He's just a guy who doesn't cover one-on-one very well. So if you throw him back in a zone, he might be able to handle things. But I'm not convinced that Elijah Molden is a starting level player in the NFL either. I think both him and Jamal Adams are depth pieces. So I understand the move. I think that Jamal Adams will fit in the Titans scheme under Denard Wilson, going to be very blitz heavy, very pressure heavy, really aggressive. And I think a guy like Jamal Adams is best known for his ability to blitz. So if you get him in a role like that to go downhill, they can get something out of him. But I just don't think that he has the high-end upside now. Even at his best, he's not a starting level player in the NFL, in my opinion. So I think that while the Titans had a need at safety and Jamal Adams is a player that can fit, I don't know that they actually addressed the need that they actually had when you talk about what the player is going to do within the system. So I would call it a low risk because it's a $1.1 million contract. I mean, there really is no risk at all. But Kevin, what I would say is the risk is that you're signing a guy and you expect to play him a pretty good amount, and he's just not a good football player anymore, and he's not going to be healthy. And so while the risk is low, there's not zero risk. You still have the potential to play somebody a good amount of snaps who's not good at football anymore. And I don't think that the reward is that high because even if things work out, he's still just a third safety, a depth player. I don't even think he should start for the Titans. So I like the move in the sense of they needed safety depth. They didn't have to pay a lot. It's a veteran minimum. But the upside, I think, is incredibly limited as well. So it's kind of just okay, I guess. It didn't solve the need for me at safety that the Titans still have.
So do you think that they might go out there and add another guy? There's still quality players available. Do you think they dip in the market again, or do you think they just roll with what they have and Adams is a part of that?
Well, they certainly have the money to do so. Right now, they're at about $22 to $23 million in cap space. And Kevin, you're a very smart guy. You know how this works. Teams want to have a little money to play with during the season. Trades, injuries, picking up guys. You could roll over cap space in the NFL, like old rollover minutes too. So that's something that teams have the ability to do. So I would understand if the Titans wanted to keep their powder dry and make sure that they had room in the season to make moves if they need to. But I think they should add another safety, a Justin Simmons, a Quandre Diggs, and Eddie Jackson, names that are available. But to answer your question, I do not think that they will. I think that the Titans look at Jamal Adams as somebody who Denard Wilson can get the best out of. Titans' new defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson, who, Kevin, you had the opportunity to cover last year as passing game coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, worked in the secondary. Him and Jamal Adams were together during Adams' Pro Bowl seasons with the New York Jets. So to me, this looks like a move of, we don't want to pay for Justin Simmons. Eddie Jackson and Quandre Diggs may not be as good of a scheme fit for us. Denard Wilson has a great connection with Jamal Adams. So if we're not going to get Justin Simmons, are we really answering the question anyway? We might as well go get just some depth there and a guy who has a connection to our defensive coordinator. Also, Jamal Adams has the same agent as Rand Carthon, Titans general manager, when he was an NFL player. So there's a connection there. Jamal Adams' father, I believe, played with Rand Carthon's father. So there's a lot of connection there between the two families. And I think that had a lot to do with this pairing. So should they go sign another safety? I think the answer is yes. Will they? I got to tell you, I think my answer is no. I think they're going to roll with Elijah Molden, Amani Hooker, and Jamal Adams and see if Denard Wilson, a secondary-focused defensive coordinator, can get the best out of all of them.
Yeah, speaking of the defense as a whole, Tyler, obviously if Adams doesn't change much, or just even if he does, how does the defense look to you right now as we enter training camp? What do you think the potential of the group is? And do you think it'll be much improved based off what we saw last season?
See, I guess I don't know that it'll be much improved. I think we'll see a flip. So the Titans were a good run defense for a lot of the Mike Vrabel years and a bad pass defense. So I think that there'll still be a middle-of-the-road average defense in the NFL like they've been in years past, but it'll flip this year. They'll be worse against the run. They'll be better against the pass because of the cornerback additions and Cheeto Awuzie and then L'Jarius Sneed, of course. I think the Titans will be better in pass defense, which I think is ultimately more important in today's NFL. But looking at it, Denard Wilson, we don't really know exactly what he's going to do. A lot of people talk about, hey, he was with the Ravens last year. Let's look at that scheme. But I don't know that he's going to do Mike McDonald stuff primarily. He's mentioned some of his inspirations, mentors have been Todd Bowles, Greg Williams. And if you've been watching football for a while and you know anything about Todd Bowles and Greg Williams' defense, that is just pressure all the time. So I think this Titans team is really going to get after people. They're going to press at the line of scrimmage. They're going to bring pressure from different places. They're going to, they signed Kenneth Murray at linebacker. The only thing he's good at is blitzing downhill. He can't do anything else well. Jamal Adams, same thing. He can't do anything else well but blitz downhill. So you have guys like that. You have a pressure defense, pressing at the line of scrimmage. I think that's what the Titans are going to be looking to do. And I think that there are some areas where they really lack talent. The interior defensive line, other than Jeffrey Simmons, maybe Tavondre Sweat works out. I wasn't super high on that pick. But outside of those two, the Titans don't have they don't have enough talent on the interior defensive line. Their linebacker group is one of the worst in the NFL. And I think the safety group is one of the worst in the NFL as well. So up the middle of the defense, they're really going to struggle. But on the outsides, some good edge work, good cornerbacks. I think the Titans could still be a middle-of-the-road defense. They're just going to look different than they have under Mike Vrabel.
Tyler is great. And for more on Tyler, check him out over at Locked On Titans and right here on Locked On NFL. Of course, part of Locked On Podcast Network here, your team every day. Coming up, we'll have David Harrison on the show to be talking about the Commanders' expectations and remembering Monte Kiffin. Stay tuned. We'll have to get to on the show. First, the show is sponsored by BetterHelp. And There are plenty of times when people tend to compare their lives to others, and I'm sure social media absolutely plays a part in that. And for me personally, when I get caught up in all that, wishing, my life might look like someone else's or whatnot, I remember what I actually do have in the moment. Comparison is a thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. It might look like they have it all together on their Instagram, and in reality, they probably don't. They're picking up, you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. And therapy has so many benefits, whether it's learning positive coping skills, how to set boundaries, empowering you to become the best version of yourself. And it also isn't just for those who experience major trauma, it's for everyone. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a free questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn to get 10% off the first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. We are back here with Locked On NFL, final part of the show. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Monday. We are so close to football. Training camp kicks off. We've already had Ravens rookies reporting, other teams rookies starting to trickle in here. So really exciting time in the NFL world. Now we're going to be joined by David Harrison of Locked On Commanders to talk about their expectations for the season, along with remembering the life of Monte Kiffin, a legendary defensive coordinator. So let's get into that conversation now. The Washington Commanders have one of the more intriguing teams this year with the upgraded quarterback with Jake Daniels and a new coach in Dan Quinn. Here to talk about that with me is David Harrison, the host of Locked On Commanders. And David, I know that a lot of people, they see the NFC picture, they see Philadelphia, they see Dallas, San Francisco, et cetera, but this Commanders team, while they might not be at the top of that conference, I do think there's a lot of room for growth with this team, but in your eyes, with training camp starting up here really soon, what are some realistic expectations you've had based off how the offseason has gone up to this point?
I think the realistic expectations for this team is to be competitive, and that's kind of, it's kind of sad. Like if you're a Ravens fan, you're probably like, oh, be competitive. That's a big step you're taking there. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, like that's where some teams have to come from, right? Like there's kind of a hierarchy of competitive ability, and step number one is being competitive and having a roster that gives their all every single snap, every single second of the game, no matter what is happening. That's step number one. Like without that, you have nothing else. Like you can't go out there and become a contender. You can't go out there and become a champion. You can't go out there and become a perennial champion. You know what I mean? You've got to have that competitive nature. You've got to have that fire about you. And to be quite frank, like the Washington Commanders haven't had it. They haven't had it. This is my third year on the beat. I've yet to see a Commanders team that was truly competitive week in, week out against any opponent, every opponent, no matter what was going on. What I've witnessed is a team that's very externally motivated. You know what I mean? Like when they go in on a Monday night into the link against an undefeated Philadelphia Eagles team that's becoming a Super Bowl champion, they rise to the occasion and they win that game. And then they come in against the New York Giants and they're like third backup quarterback of the year and they lose like 14-7. You know what I mean? They're very much a team that plays down to or up to their opponents at times, and then sometimes they don't even play up to their opponents, just get run out their own building, run out the building wherever they are. So this team, really the first thing you need to see is a team that no matter who the opponent is, no matter the venue, no matter the time of the day, no matter the records, none of that matters. We're going to come in and we're going to fight you for 4 quarters. If you win, congratulations, but you're going to earn that win. Nothing's going to be handed to you. So that's got to be the first step for the Commanders, and I think that they have the coaching staff and the veteran leadership in place now to make sure that that happens.
And I think another big part of that too, you're exactly right, is just culture in general. I mean, you, David, being so close to the team and covering them, have you kind of sensed the shift in belief with this team where, yes, it's a rookie quarterback. There are going to be some growing pains with that. But do you feel like this team really believes that, hey, we can make some noise, even if, this is not we're going to win the Super Bowl type of year. It's, we can improve on what we've had and gradually get there.
Yeah, I mean, that shift in mentality is absolutely there. You know what I mean? You talk to guys across the roster from, your most like star-studded players like Terry McLaurin, guys that, every team's fan base knows when they play this team and all that. He says like he senses the shift and he senses the new energy and how exciting it is. Jonathan Allen, who had a lot of less than positive things to say during the last season, right? Even going as far as to just admit openly over the radio waves that he's thought about what it might be like to play for other teams, which obviously didn't make anybody happy. But he's kind of said, I'm rejuvenated and re-energized by what's going on. And then I just had offensive tackle Alex Akinbulu on Locked On Commanders, and he's not a marquee player by any means, but he's a guy that I've gotten to know quite a bit on the roster, so I wanted to have him on the show. And he talked about how, this is his third year with the team, third different offensive coordinator, second different head coach. And yeah, he said it's like night and day. He said it was like getting traded to a new team, but you're coming back to the same location. And really, it all starts with Josh Harris, and the sale of the team over to the group that's led by Josh Harris really kind of started this whole thing. And this is just kind of like the second phase of what the franchise is going to become under Mr. Harris. And it's already, like I said, it's pointing upwards. We got to see what the results are going to be on the field, right? But right now, the energy anyway is much improved.
And I think this Commanders team could sneak up on some people this year. I think, again, it's just a matter of, they have a rookie head coach. Well, Dan Quinn's very experienced, but a rookie Commanders head coach, and then the rookie quarterback. People are kind of maybe just writing them off. Well, I think that with Dan Quinn's experience and Jaden Daniels, I think he is more enough already than some people might think he is. I think, to me, that team could sneak up. But, David, I know you also have experience covering the Buccaneers. You were the host, or one of them, over at Locked On Buccaneers. And James Yarko couldn't be with us here today to talk about Monte Kiffin, but I wanted to get some perspective on him because he was a great coach, just someone that could go, and he created multiple different looks, multiple different defenses. Can you kind of talk about him and his legacy, because his passing really hit the football world hard?
Yeah, as it should. You know what I mean? Fortunately for Coach Kiffin, he lived a relatively long life. He could have lived longer, and that'd have been great. But there's players. I mean, you're dealing with it right now on Locked On Ravens, right? There's people who lose their lives at 40 years young, and that's incredibly tragic. You never hate to lose anybody, but I think if we can all have the impact on our profession that Monte Kiffin had over during his profession, we would count ourselves among the fortunate people. And I think that's really what Monty is going to be remembered for, is just changing the game. You know what I mean? The game of football today is not what it is without Monte Kiffin. You know what I mean? And I think that's really the mark of a great part of the NFL is can people look at what you've done and literally say that the game wouldn't be the same without you. I think he is the poster child for, if you ever get into an argument, which I don't think many people do, but if you ever do get in the argument that the Pro Football Hall of Fame needs to consider coordinators to be enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Monte Kiffin's that guy. If the NFL, or not the NFL, but if the Pro Football Hall of Fame ever opens its doors to coordinators beyond, there's things in the Hall of Fame that honor Monte Kiffin, and that's great. You know what I mean? But if the Hall of Fame ever opens its doors to coordinators to be legit, you get a bust and a jacket and enshrined as a whole human being, Monte Kiffin's first dude through that door. He's got to be. You know what I mean? And I think that just kind of shows the impact that he made on the game. And then, honestly, I remember back when he did it, the decision to kind of leave. I don't say leave big time football, because it means Ole Miss and Tennessee. They're big programs, you know what I mean? But he left the NFL. He's a Super Bowl champion. And I'll say this too: the Buccaneers don't have their first Super Bowl championship, I believe, without Monte Kiffin. So you can even throw that in there. But then he ends up, eventually making the decision to go coach with his son. You know what I mean? His son, Lane, and I know Lane catches a lot of flack, and some of it's deserved. But Lane goes and gets a head coaching job, and Monty says, I'm going to go coach with my son. And I mean, what better, way for somebody to be able to do that and to carve out that path for yourself. So I remember thinking about it was painful to watch him leave the NFL. And obviously you want to continue doing all those things, but just thinking wow, think about having that opportunity to spend, some of the twilight years of your profession working alongside your son. I mean, people can rag on LeBron and Bronny all they want, but I mean, that's an opportunity that not everybody gets. And every single person that, if they had that opportunity, would absolutely take it. Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr., that's another example, right? I know we're kind of going off on tangents here, but yeah, I mean, Monty, he led a great life, man. Very impactful. Obviously I know people with the Buccaneers, those people who have worked for the Buccaneers since Monty was there, still work for the Buccaneers now, and they're hurting, you know what I mean? But they're hurting in a way because they know how impactful the man that they just lost has been to the game. And, tip my cap to him, man. And just, wish his family all the best.
David is incredible. Great insight there, and a great tribute to Monte Kiffin. And for more on David and, of course, James over at Locked On Bucks, be sure to check out David at Locked On Commanders and James at Locked On Bucks, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's all I have for you today, though, on Locked On NFL. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow along, video form, audio form, same show, both video and audio form, for 5 days a week of your NFL content fix. Stay tuned for everything we have coming up this week. We'll be right back here tomorrow with your Tuesday host. So be sure to stay tuned. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NFL.